Calling from Virginia and pronounce she, her. It's either Gaia or Gaia. I never know how to pronounce it correctly, and I think there's different ways, but Gaia is a question, or Gaia is a questioning believer, calling about beliefs in angels and demons. So I'm assuming we're not talking about the Dan Brown novel, and we're actually talking about real angels and demons. So how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
We hear you just fine.
Perfectly.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so just like kind of a basis is I've been questioning as of very recently. I've always like identified myself as like a spiritual person, but I was raised Eastern Orthodox, and religion really has been in my life like the entire time. My wife's religious, but reading more into the actual Bible and seeing like kind of the atrocities that are occurring, it's kind of made me kind of disgusted with my own religion. And I'm like, what is holding me from kind of just renouncing this belief? Because we talk and I hear you guys talk all the time. It's like about logic, if there's no evidence to prove something, why would you believe in it? And I guess my motivator has been this fear. And that kind of brings me into like where I was wondering if you guys could shed some light, because I really appreciate the way that you guys articulate your subjects and everything. But yeah, what I'm wondering is, people from the beginning of time, like their morals have been kind of shaped by not only like their cultures and everything, but like, DNA from evolution. I think Forrest talking about that before is like kind of like a pack mentality thing. But I'm wondering, like, these people that are mentioned in the Bible that are like killing and sacrificing children and stuff, I'm wondering, are they just like batshit insane? Or were they gaining something from some force that we don't know about that was motivating them to continue doing it? Kind of like the same in like, I guess, the Aztecs or Mayans. I'm just like wondering, like I would never do something like that. Like that's just, I don't need religion to tell me that that's wrong, but I'm wondering like, what is their motivation? Like what makes them be like, okay, if we do this thing, the sun god's going to give us, rain or something. I don't know.
Yeah, see what you're saying there, Gaia. So the thing is, like, humans. First of all, I don't think most of the stuff in the Bible about these foreign, neighboring tribes sacrificing children, I don't put a lot of stock in that because the Bible is a very motivated book. They wanted to paint them as the bad guys and the Israelites as the good guys. So I already put all that in doubt. But like things like the Aztecs you mentioned, like where they performed human sacrifice for religious means, that was a very real thing. And yeah, they had religious motivation. They think they were appeasing the gods to get, better harvest or more rain, or I'm not, they were doing it for some reason. I would just simply chalk that up to not that. I would chalk that up to just humans recognizing certain patterns and latching on to kind of like things that they want to see, like confirmation bias and like things like the sharpshooter fallacy. Like these folks got the idea in their head that sacrificing humans produced some results. So they started sacrificing humans. And when they got that result, it confirmed their belief that sacrificing that human got them that result. But when it didn't happen, they just simply dismissed that and ignored it. They look for maybe technicalities or like, okay, maybe maybe it's Sunday and the gods don't do this kind of stuff on Sunday. They find reasons to hold on to the belief. So that's kind of my naturalistic explanation as to why like the Aztecs did something like that. A competing explanation is that there are in fact gods and demons that are doing the actions that they think that they're doing. So the question comes down to which explanation is less burdensome with evidence and proof and establishing, because I think both explanations are completely sufficient to explain it, but one
Right.
has a much higher burden of proof. So which one of those explanations should we go with? That's kind of how I look at it.
There's
Go
a
ahead, Matt.
couple of common flaws in how we think. I mean,
Yeah.
in a way, you're asking, hey, why do people wear lucky socks? Do they really do better at bowling when they wear their lucky socks? And the answer is no, there's no reason to think that you actually do better when bowling because you're wearing your lucky socks. We have a confirmation bias. We fall prey to fallacies like post hoc ergo propter hoc, which means after this, therefore because of this. So basically, it could be like, I prayed for the rain to stop and it stopped. So the next time I wanted to stop the rain, I prayed, but it didn't stop. So clearly, I must have done something wrong. Maybe I prayed different. Maybe I was standing in a different position. Maybe I was wearing something different. And so we go through this complex pattern recognition thing. And that is how we get more and more complicated rituals. I highly recommend looking up information on cargo cults, where um, people living on isolated islands were interacted with cultures that had better technology than they did, and then tried to emulate it, building coconut stand structures in order to try to summon the planes to come in and drop cargo for them. Um, it doesn't take much other than a desire to see something happen again and a willingness to keep trying a variety of things until you can emulate it. And that's how you get these complicated beliefs. What we have to ask, which is what you're asking, is okay, we know we can do that. We know from a psychological standpoint, but what if these people really were sacrificing kids and getting something from these gods? The question is, what evidence is there that actually occurred? And why isn't it happening still? I mean, did we forget how to do it? And is there no supernatural being or agency who can tell us again how to do it? If so, I'm actually in favor of that, because then we don't have to be slaughtering anything. But it's not really, it's really easy to start with one simple point of confusion and with a dogged determinism for a better outcome to build that into a complicated structure of beliefs.
Yeah,
So,
that's
go ahead.
sorry. I don't want to cut anyone off.
No, we're talking a
I
lot, so
just
you go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I just I was really listening to I just kind of tuned in on the last call. So I was gonna look at that website. I'm taking notes right now, like the cargo cults, to look more into it. But it's fear is this powerful motivator. And now that the way that you're saying and kind of laying it out, Matt, it kind of sounds like when I was a child and I would be scared that there's a monster in my room. My parents used to say oh, just pray. And that would make me feel better. But now it's I'm in my house, and when I get scared or I have a nightmare or something, I just kind of tell myself that there's nothing there and that they're not real, and it has the same effect. So it's it's kind of, yeah, I kind of, maybe it's just these ancient peoples are trying to make an explanation. And that's kind of all creationist, I believe, ideas, right? I tried, and I listened to another podcast by you guys, or call-in show. And one of the things was to talk to your friends who are theists and stuff. And I tried to meet one of my friends for brunch last week. And when I brought up some of the points that you guys did about these bad things that God is doing and Jesus and stuff, they were just very dismissive. And I'm I didn't expect that from someone who's a nurse and is also religious. I'm we're going to, we've been friends. We're going to have a real conversation. We've known each other for a long time. And then it's just well, my God wouldn't do that. And I'm what?
Okay.
It says it in your book.
Well, so first of all, most people don't know what their book says, but most people also have a very particular view about what their God would or wouldn't do, or what's consistent with their God's nature. And what we found from scientific study is that their God seems to almost always agree with them. And that when we look at, if you put somebody under MRI or some other way to actually measure brain activity, there's an area of the brain that lights up when you say, what do you think about this? Let's just say it's here. It's not probably, but it's here. And then when you ask them, what does Joe think about this? A different part lights up. When you ask them, what does God think about this? It's not the other person part that lights up. It's the self part that lights up. And
Mm.
there's an argument to be made, and I don't agree with this. I think it's an oversimplification, but for some people it's probably true, that fundamentally people grasp that they don't actually have sufficient reason for believing in a God, and that this requires protective mechanisms, defense mechanisms of being dismissive or rationalizing, or that's not the way my God works. All of these things, coping mechanisms. I think that's an oversimplification. I don't think it applies to everybody, but certainly there are people who probably are suppressing the fact that they don't have a particularly good reason. And that's why there's a bunch of different people who believe for different reasons, and it's going to take a lot of work in different areas to help them out. Hello. Hey, everybody. Hi. Welcome home. Arden's been gone for days.
Arden.
All right. Sorry about that.
It's like maybe they're scared just as much as I am, or they're scared of, like, you know, because me doing this right now, it's like I'm shedding all this like weight off my back. And I guess, like, you know, them being as old as me and is like intertwined with this like religion since the beginning, it's just like, maybe it's just they're terrified to also like go through what I'm going through right now, because it is kind of scary to like step into the unknown and out of your comfort zone. But it's like, you know, the older I get, and like, you know, the relationships I have, like the relationship I have with my wife and my friends, it's like one thing, it's like we always like honor more than anything else is like the truth. And I want that to be in every aspect of my life, you know? So I'm just like thinking, I'm like, why am I putting effort into this? Like, why am I going on? Like, I used to volunteer a lot when I was living in Hawaii to like build sidewalks and stuff for churches and stuff. And that was like nice, you know, to go on the weekend, kind of connect with people. And now I'm just like, you know, why am I even going to church on Sunday to kind of hear this stuff when I could better use that time doing something else that's either beneficial for my family or for my community, rather than just go here and be listening to something that I don't even know it's true. It's like me going to like
great point.
A movie.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely think that is such a great point that I wish more people would talk about. And that is, hang on. Within certain religions, the practice of the religion is a bunch of lip service, like, for example, within Christianity, a bunch of lip service about being Christ-like. But it's the trips to church on Sundays and holidays to just praise, 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 praise. Here, teach me how to praise better, and then teach me how to be more Christ-like in my daily life. Cool. What's the purpose of all the praise? Does God have such a fragile fucking ego that he can't go a couple of minutes without somebody saying, "Ooh, you're so amazing"? And what does that do for any of us? I tell you, the only thing that I know for sure it does is it strengthens bonds of a community. It strengthens the bonds of a community because you are there participating with other people. That becomes your in-group, and their goals become your goals. But until such time as somebody demonstrates that their goals should be my goals, I don't give a fuck about their goals or God's goals.
I think what Matt just described there, it kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier with like the tactics that religions use: fear, setting aside confusion or any type of like cognitive dissonance. Like, you know, okay, well, my God's all loving, but in the Bible, he does all these horrible things. And how a lot of Christians will simply just package that up and set it aside and say, well, God's mysterious. He must have a reason that I simply don't understand. Basically anything to ignore the contradiction sitting in front of them that they have to contend with. It's a way of packaging it up and setting it aside. And then with churches and religions, having these, not all of them do, but a lot of them do, having events where people get together, they sing together, they pray together, they hoot and holler together. These are all things that religion has developed internally as a system to keep people believing. Now, whether that's like malicious or not, or whether just kind of naturally developed over many centuries, and it's just like kind of like evolution in nature, just religions evolve to survive, and these are things that work on lots of humans, and thus religions continue to survive. All this kind of ties together into kind of the things that religion does to shut down thinking, to shut down this critical thought, to protect itself and keep on existing despite the evidence, despite the contradictions we see in it, despite the very obvious flaws in argumentation, very obvious flaws in pretty much everything that's God really has ever been presented to us, at least. We can see a common feature here, in that religions have all kinds of tricks up its sleeve to keep you in, and that's why it is so difficult for so many people to leave. But the fact that you're recognizing those things, saying, religion uses fear, or, we have religious folks who are good people in real life, but then they sit there and they'll justify genocide and slavery because their favorite deity did it. We can look at that and go, wait, something's not right here. This can motivate us to take a step back and go, wait a minute, what's actually going on here? What can I see? What problems can I see with this proposition in front of me? And I think you're, like I said, just like with our previous caller, William, I think you're doing a very good job asking yourself these questions. These are very self-aware things that anybody should be asking themselves. So, but this basically is all just, like I said, just religious tactics. And this is stuff that religions developed over millennia to keep people in.
Yeah, I guess like my final, I really appreciate you guys, but I guess my final thing is, taking from both of what you said is like, Matt was saying like, oh, we didn't do the ceremony the right way because I was standing here. It kind of reminds me of like that episode of South Park with the Mormons where they're explaining the religion and they're like, well, God is very angry at you. So now I have to write this entire thing from a different magical plate. And I'm just like,
yeah.
So maybe like, we killed a baby and the crops grew really good. And then we killed 10 babies and the crops didn't grow good because, well, Ezekiel, slipped and fell into like a banana peel and like broke someone's like wall or something with his brain. It's like, now God's very angry. So now the crops suck. And that's our explanation. It's like, it's just so idiotic. And like,
yeah.
Also, like for my
Motivated.
history class in college, I did. My mom used to beat me like pretty bad when we would say things like, oh my God. And she would say, you're putting the Lord's name in vain. But then when I did this history lesson and I had an essay, it was on, I think it was Pope Gregory, the one who like watched the massacre of the Sicilian Muslims. And that was like his inspiration for the Crusades. It's like, then I learned what that meant, where it's like, oh, the Lord's name in vain is like, you're justifying all of these things. And it's like, so I was getting beat the fuck out of for no reason. And it's like,
no matter what it means, no matter whether taking the Lord's name in vain means, oh my God, or let me do this in the name of God, it doesn't fucking matter until they demonstrate that there's a God and God does or doesn't want you to do things and God does or doesn't want you to say things. But also, why is God concerned about what I'm saying if it's not actively causing harm to anybody? If I say, hey, fuck God, that God's a piece of shit, whether he exists or not. Is God so weak and fragile that he desperately can't take having his feels hurt?
Yeah, that's like a big thing. Is like they talk about it, and your point on it, where it's like the praise. It kind of reminds me of like, I play like Warhammer, and it's like the more devotion you give to like these 4 demonic gods, you get rewards, and it's like tangible. But it's like they're asking for it for something that you actually get in return, and people are like, oh, that makes sense. But it's like, why is this God asking for this praise and all these rules? And it's like, out of everything in my life, thinking back on it, it's like, I tried I was in the military. It's like I tried to kill myself twice, and like all these things that's like I'm dealing with in my life. It's like, am I just supposed to credit all of this now to someone that I don't even fucking know that justifies slavery? Or should I justify it to like all the great people that I met along the way that support me and like my own strength in being like, I'm going to live my life and be who I am? Or do I give it to the sun god who...
Why not just try your best to live honestly and live well? And if it turns out there's a God and the God is dissatisfied with how you lived an honest and productive and beneficial and kind life, and instead is mad because you didn't praise them enough, that God's a piece of shit undeserving of praise.
Yeah. I guess, well, I really appreciate you guys. That was kind of that was like my last thing.
Yeah, awesome. That's fine.
Well, thanks so much for calling. We really appreciate it, and keep asking questions. Don't forget about recoveringfromreligion.org. But yep, thanks, Gaia.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Gaia.
Yep, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Bye.
I was going to mention at the end there, it is amazing how the gods that humanity has developed are so human-like. Like the Roman, the Greek gods, very, very human-like attributes. Things have like jealousy and rage and lust and debauchery and hedonism and all that kind of stuff. Like at least those gods were very honest, because those gods were those ideas of those gods were very honest, because at least it's an honest reflection of humans. But we've hit this point though. I kind of liken it to like the MCU, like when we started with Iron Man back in like 2009, very simple movie. And as the MCU developed, it's just got to escalate and get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And kind of the same thing with our gods. We've now hit this point of we have this one singular almighty God who's just like all encompassing in everything. And he has all these attributes. He has all these omni traits. And it's like we can kind of see over time this God idea just escalate and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And yet, despite that, it still has such human traits. The God of Christianity that I'm talking about right here. Because you look at the Bible and you can go, yeah, the God of the Old Testament, which is the same God as the New Testament, is petty and vindictive and genocidal, jealous, angry, rageful, very human traits. Even as you mentioned earlier, Matt, very insecure that folks were building a tower and going to become, quote, like us, like seeing humans worship other gods. Like, if they're not other gods, why are we so jealous? Like, why is God so thin-skinned and insecure? Could it be that he actually is those things? Or could it just be that the humans that wrote these stories imbued their insecurity, their thin-skinnedness onto their deity? And it's like you kind of look at all these God ideas, even Christianity's God today, like very human attributes in there. And it just smacks of a human invention to me. First of all, no evidence that actually exists, but just on the side, just completely smacks of this human invention. You can see exactly where it came from, which is one of the big reasons why I'm not convinced it exists.
Hey, if you liked that clip, you'd love the whole thing. Hit like, subscribe, leave a comment, patreon.com/calltheline. That one sucked. Use it.